Welcome to the Wild West of digital cameras. It's the early 2000s, and anything goes as manufacturers scramble to come up with a new and unique camera designs. One such relic from this time proves that great designs can be timeless. This is the Olympus E-20, a compact sensor 5 megapixel DSLR released in 2001. It's the second of a short-lived two-part series from Olympus, which bridged the gap between their 35mm film cameras and the soon-to-be-released 4/3 mount. They weren't totally alone in this approach, as similar cameras from Sony and Nikon were released around the same time. However, there are some interesting features that make this camera particularly unique and exciting. But before we get to that, let me answer the question on everyone's minds. Why would anyone buy a 5 megapixel DSLR from 2001, 20 years later? Now there's an interesting discussion I could have on this subject, but to keep things short, the answer is because it was $50 and because it can still produce beautiful images. On the outside, the Olympus E-20 is a beautiful camera. A bit elongated, and it looks like an old school camcorder, but every piece of the camera is functional. Buttons and dials adorn every surface area in a way that I haven't seen on any other camera. Perhaps this is the reason that there are very few options in the menus. Just about everything can be done with a dedicated physical button. Just hold down the button and rotate the main control dial to toggle the option. Brilliant. Ergonomically, the camera handles very well with a deep grip and the deepest thumb/palm rest on the rear that I've ever seen on a camera. The rubber grip is completely disintegrating with age, but I'll forgive that one for it being 20 years old. This is what my wildlife photography has come to. Photographing slugs with a 20-year-old camera. The sensor, like I mentioned before, is a compact 2/3 inch 5 megapixel CCD sensor. Now there's a lot of information there, so I'll break that down. The relatively small sensor size compared to APS-C or even 4/3 sensors is modest, but I found it worked better than expected for low light images, with one limitation that I'll talk more about later. 5 megapixels proved plenty for sharing online photos as expected, but obviously gives you some limited cropping power. That's an important point given the non-interchangeable lens model, something I'll also discuss more later. CCD sensors are making a comeback with many people, including myself, feeling nostalgic for or even preferring its unique look. Since the Olympus E-20 has a non-interchangeable lens system, it better have a good lens to begin with. I found the attached lens to be quite good and was pleasantly surprised with its sharpness and rendering. It is a useful range, 35mm to 140mm equivalent, with a large aperture of f2 on the wide end and maintains a wide number of f2.4 at the long end. These large apertures are critical to the success of this camera, as it helps overcome one of the two limitations to the exposure triangle that this camera has. It is a beautiful morning in the woods today. The sun is just starting to come above the horizon. It just starts to kiss little things in the woods. But until it does, it's actually kind of dark, and you have to shoot at higher ISOs if you're shooting handhold like I'm trying to do here. And that brings up some interesting limitations with the Olympus E-20N, but it's at the shutter speed. The fastest it goes is 1/640th of a second. It can go faster, up to 1/4000th or even higher if you put it in a progressive scan mode. Then the image quality takes a big hit. So you really would want to avoid that. So what that means is if you're trying to shoot wide open on a sunny day, your choice is basically to use an ND filter or to use that progressive scan mode. The second limitation is that the ISO only goes up to 320. So in situations like this, where I'm trying to handhold a shot in low light, even wide open with that f2, I can't do it. The shutter speed is just much, much too low. So the solution there is to either use some sort of external lighting like a flash or bring a tripod. And neither of which I have right now, so I'm going to wait here until the sun gets a little bit brighter and then shoot some scenes. Despite those limitations, the Olympus E-20 feels incredibly capable for its age. It is a little slow on the autofocus and quite slow on the writing speed. And there's my picture now. But the technology packaged in here makes it feel much more modern than it really is. The entire camera is built off of a semi-translucent mirror that allows some of the very first live view technology in any consumer camera. The screen even articulates to allow waist level shooting, something all cameras originally costing $2,000 should have. Pentax K3 Mark III. Now, I didn't find myself actually using it that much because the screen is quite low quality. In many ways, it feels like you're using the Mark I of the high-tech cameras Olympus now produces. And that actually is what you're using. The Olympus E-20 is now one of my favorite cameras to shoot. At a price of around $50, it offers a lot of value. The ISO and shutter speed limitations, along with the fixed lens, makes it a hard sell over some other $50 cameras. But as a whole package, I think it has a lot going for it. If you want to shoot something completely different, something most people have never even seen or heard of, but something that can still produce lovely images, then this camera might be for you. Thanks for watching. What do you think of the Olympus E-20? Would you ever pick one up? Did you ever own one, or do you still own one? That would be interesting. Let me know in the comments. Drop by the community forum to join fellow photographers interested in the joy of photography, no matter how old or quirky the gear is. Follow me on Instagram to see what I'm shooting with right now, and remember to go out there and shoot whatever, with whatever old crazy camera you have. And until next time, happy snapping.